Hello and welcome to another X-Ray Tech video. Today we're going to be talking about an invoicing process. Now, if you're a member or potential member, this video is really for you to help you understand the automation complexities and the difference between a simple automation and really a professionally built automation. So I hope this video gives you a little insight into a lot of the things that we think about when we're constructing an automated workflow and an automated process and infrastructure for you and your company. And also gives you a better understanding of when you make an ask of, hey, can we automate invoicing? There's an iceberg worth of options and decisions that need to be made just to accomplish that one invoicing task. So this first automation is very simple, very direct, and would honestly probably error quite a bit. So it's a new deal in a closed won stage here in HubSpot. And based off of that new deal in stage, we want to create a new invoice inside of QuickBooks and send that invoice inside of QuickBooks. Now, the caveat here is that this automation will only work successfully when this customer already exists inside of your QuickBooks. One of the major things that ends up happening as a part of trying to automate invoicing is a complete indexing of your accounting software and your CRM customers. We need all of their IDs, so we know who is in the accounting software and not in HubSpot, or vice versa, right? Who's in the CRM and not in the accounting software. So this is the first sort of version of an automation for invoicing. It is simple, it is rudimentary, and it is very likely to error quite often if there's anyone new being added into the system. So let's look at the second automation. The second automation still has the same trigger, new deal in stage in HubSpot, and we added that find or create customer in QuickBooks step. And we're going to do this based off of their email. So we use the email as what we call a key. So it's the same, the email address is the same in HubSpot as it is in QuickBooks, in your accounting software. Now, this should always be true. This customer should always have the same email if you're going to contact them, right? So when you're adding that second step inside of QuickBooks, that find or create customer inside of QuickBooks, it's essential that we determine if this person is already in QuickBooks. So we either can create a new customer or we can just assign them that invoice and create it and send it to them. Now, the last step here that I'll note is the create spreadsheet row in Google Docs. Most of our customers and most of our members are really, really comfortable on Google Sheets. Now, Google Sheets is where you're comfortable. It's not necessarily the right tool for the job. So in this sort of second evolution, the second example of invoicing, what we're doing here is creating an activity log. We are adding in a new record in Google Sheets to say, hey, we just sent an invoice to this customer successfully. It worked. Great job, right? To tell you what the robots are working on. Now, let's hold that thought for a second in Google Sheets, and let's move over to this third, most complex automation that is still, sending an invoice. So for this third automation, we're still going to have the same trigger. It's still going to be new deal in closed won inside of HubSpot. And again, if you use other CRMs like Pipedrive or Salesforce or whatever, that trigger can be swapped out with any of those other CRMs. So, think about it as a placeholder. Don't need to be using HubSpot. Anyway, the second step here is where things start to really get a lot more complex. Now, this is the creation of a full customer record. So when you think about all the different ways that you acquire a customer and all the different touch points that you have, maybe they end up paying you monthly, or maybe it's project basis and you have multiple projects going on with them over time. Creating a full company record will centralize all of the data and information that you have about not only that customer, but all the work that you did for that customer inside of an Airtable base. Now, we're using Airtable here instead of Google Sheets because Airtable uses column IDs. So every attribute that you have inside of an Airtable base has its own ID, its own alphanumeric code that identifies that specific attribute. In Google Sheets, all you have is column A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on. So if you rearrange those columns in Google Sheets, they change their letter, right? If you go from column J to column A, those letters change. In Airtable, that's not the case. Every column maintains its own ID, So when you map properties and data to go in and out of different areas inside of Airtable, you can rearrange that to your heart's content. Nothing gets messed up in that process. So the 3 steps in the middle is going to be the same as that very first automation: find or create a customer, create an invoice, and send that invoice. And then the 6th step here is going to be to update that full customer record. So inside of automations, you create new data, right? In this case, we created an invoice. What this update step is on step 6 is actually taking some of that created data, like the link to maybe the payment link, or maybe the customer ID, if we just created a new customer ID inside of QuickBooks, and it's going to go back to Airtable. It's going to grab that record that it just created, and it's going to insert all of the IDs or links relevant from QuickBooks that just got created inside of the automation. So this is sort of a self-documenting system, right? As we get a new deal that's in closed won, we're gonna create a new full company record, we're gonna do the invoicing steps that we need to do, and then we're gonna grab whatever data from those invoicing steps and put it back into Airtable so that we have a full, complete picture of what this customer is doing with us and what we've done for them inside of Airtable. So it's really a huge step to be able to sort of sandwich the QuickBooks steps with these Airtable steps, because we know that we're getting all the information that we need from QuickBooks. And this last step here is to announce to the team. Very simply, we sent a new invoice. It's amazing how useful a simple announcement can be. So a lot of times we find out, we find that automations are invisible. It's difficult to understand what's going on or who is responsible for what or what the automations did. In this case, by announcing it inside of Slack, we're able to tell everyone, hey, this customer was just invoiced this amount on this day. Not only do you have the activity log inside of Airtable to be able to look back and see exactly what you sent to who, and also the audit trail inside of QuickBooks now that you can go back and look at, but you have the record inside of Slack where work tends to get talked about a lot, right? And we can have a link directly referencing Airtable and QuickBooks, so everyone is on the same page and aware that the robots just sent out that invoice. So to wrap this up, just really simply, building an operational database does take a little bit more time, but the returns and the high touch fidelity that you're able to have with both your data and your automations drastically outweighs sort of cutting corners on that really simple automation that we started today with. So I really hope that, if anything, this helped you see and understand the drastic number of ways that all of these automations can be accomplished, and know that there is a tremendous amount of intent and forward thinking in the way that we design and architect these automations to fit inside of your company and collect the data that you need to make decisions after these automations have been running for a while. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other things you could incorporate into this automation or add or extend this automation. And this is exactly why we prefer memberships. We want to work with your company to be able to build what fits and what is right for your organization. And to pretend that all invoicing automations are the same is just simply not true, right? Not all invoicing automations are the same, and the way that we end up building and cementing these automations into your processes is critically important for your trust in the system, that it's going to work the same way consistently and correctly every time. So this is why we prefer a membership, because we want to be there with you as we both discover together the right way to fit this inside of your process, but also to understand and be able to adapt and fix any issues that come up when data is shaped a little differently, when the process sort of veers off into a different path. These automations need to be able to adapt to fit the company and to be able to earn your trust as you rely on them more and more often. If you have any questions about this or comments or things you'd like us to talk about, please reach out and let us know. As always, links and resources are in the description down below. And don't forget, keep the flow.